Good morning. Today is May 1st in the year 2020. It is Friday. We're going to be continuing our Bible study in Genesis. We are in the middle of the second account in that book. Last time we ended a little abruptly because I pressed the wrong button accidentally. But I had asked the question, what was the real sin of the man and the woman in the Garden of Eden? Maybe you've had some time to think about that. Let's review. They were told not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The serpent enticed the woman. She took and ate and gave some to her husband. They then realized they were naked and fled from the presence of God. So, we have a simple, did the act of eating, was that sinful? Well, yes, it was against it was in direct violation of the orders of God. But that begs the question, why were they told not to eat of it? Why did it exist at all if it was something they were not supposed to have? Now, I warned you last time that sometimes when there are questions we want to know the answer to that aren't in the text, it may simply be because that's not the point. And in general, I would think that, okay, that's our answer. They violated God's command. That is the end of it. But it is specifically that this is the knowledge of the tree, that this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so much of the Old Testament is dedicated to knowing good from evil. So I have to come to a conclusion that there may be more to it than that. So this is my theory, for such it's worth. That when human beings attempt to shortcut their way to wisdom and growth, it inevitably leads to trouble. That the knowledge of good and evil, as described here, the wisdom of God, is not a simple thing to be grasped, but a thing to take time and learn. I could be completely wrong about that. But that seems to me consistent with the rest of the Bible. But remember, this is a story about broken relationships and how failing to be in harmony with God leads to disaster. These broken relationships continue in the part that we're about to pick up today. This is chapter 4. And even though it seems to begin a new story, this is still part of the account that began in chapter 2, verse 4. Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. All right, lots of embedded questions here. First, why did Cain bring offerings in the first place? And what did he bring? He brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. I don't know if Adam and Eve had begun a practice of sacrifice. That's not in the story. What we know is that Cain brought some and Abel brought fat portions. A lot of people say Cain's offering was rejected because it wasn't blood. The law makes provision for grain offering. and for oil offering. If the law of Moses accepts it, that would not be why Cain's offer was rejected. Rather, I think it's because Cain offered just something, not first fruits, but something. And Abel offered the fat part, the good part, the abundant part. Nor does it say that here Cain is somehow rebuked or rejected. It is simply that Abel got the favor. Cain's was not rejected. It was that Abel's was better. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door, desires to have you, but you must master it." God, the Lord, Yahweh, still here, intercedes with Cain. He does not say that Cain has yet sinned, but that he did not do what he knew to be right, and so sin was close to him. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out into the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. The Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" The question asked is very much like God asking Adam, "Where are you? And who told you you were naked?" These are questions God already knows the answer to. He is giving the human being a chance. "I don't know," you reply. "Am I my brother's keeper?" That question has hung around humanity for a long time. And the answer is rather simple. Yes, you are. You are responsible for others around you, for their well-being. The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse." Okay, this is the first time the word curse is used in conjunction with a human being. Previously, we saw that the word curse was used of the serpent and of the ground, but not of Adam and Eve. So now there is a difference. "You are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Okay, that is his curse. The curse of Cain is that he will be a bad farmer, and that no land will produce for him. Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." This is the sons of Adam and Eve. Who's going to find him? And if anyone found him, wouldn't they just be his brother or sister anyway? Again, that's not the point of the story. The Lord said to him, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over." The Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out of the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Okay. The mark of Cain is not a curse. Listen carefully. The mark of Cain is not a curse. It is not a sign of a curse. Instead, it is a sign of God's blessing. All of those theologies that have developed over who bears the mark of Cain, all of those stories over who bears the mark of Cain and what it means and how it's been passed are wrong. They are misguided. The mark of Cain was unique. It was not something passed down to his children. It was not part of his curse. The mark of Cain is a blessing on Cain. You say, how so? It says, if you kill me, God will get you. It is a post warning. No hunting allowed. It is a sign of God's protection of Cain, not a sign of God's curse. Because as I said last time, every time we see punishment on a human being, we also see a sign of God's grace and his love. God extends his love to Cain in that he does not kill Cain, he simply exiles him. And in fact, he makes sure that no one can kill Cain. I know, that ruins a lot of stories. And it severely disrupts the theology of a couple of major religious movements. But the mark of Cain is a blessing. And it is for Cain himself and nobody else. Cain lay with his wife. Where did his wife come from? That's not the point. The point is Cain, murderous son, Abel, good son, but even the murderous son receives God's grace. Cain lay with his wife. She became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain then went and built a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad the father of Mehujael, Mehujael the father of Methuselah, or Methushael, and Methushael was the father of Lamech. Now, there are a lot of these, the father of. But I want you to make a note here, something that we will return to. If you count back from Lamech to Adam, you have 7 generations. Lamech serves an exemplary purpose. It is not that the author wants to give the genealogy of humanity. He wants to show something about Cain. Lamech married 2 women. This is the first instance of polygamy. It is not condemned, but as we will see of Lamech's character, it is not a sign of one who is following God. One named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal, who is the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He is the father of all who play the harp and flute. Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, and a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. We see the characteristic of the line of Cain is violence. That those who are descendants of Cain are violent. In some sense, the line of Cain is the seed of the serpent. Those who strike to kill. Lamech exalts in his violence. Rather than an eye for an eye, he takes a life for an insult. And he is rejoicing in his ability to kill, and to kill in multitudes. He is the exemplar of the line of Cain. And the reason we make this point is we will see, we will probably continue this next account here in just a second, that the line of the next son, 7 down from Adam, is also exemplary. Adam lay with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, named him Enosh. And at that time, men began to call on the name of the Lord. Notice the difference between the line of Seth and the line of Cain. In the line of Seth, we have, at that time, men began to call on the name of the Lord. In the line of Cain, we have Lamech, a man of violence. Now, this ends the second account in Genesis. We will begin the third account here. This is written account of Adam's line. When God created man, he made in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them. When they were created, he called them man. Now, there is a formula here, and it is important that we look at the formula. It is repetitive, but in repetition, we have purpose. And when we have repetition, we look for breaks in the pattern, and in doing so, gain insight as to the author's purpose. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image. He named him Seth. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived 930 years, and he died. All right, so here we have the pattern. First of all, God makes man in his own image. Adam has a son in his own likeness, in his own image. Again, there's no language of losing the image of God. The image of God is in Adam, and the image of Adam is in Seth. There is a transmission of the essential nature. The word image is the classical one, but it's a little misleading for us because we tend to think of a visual appearance. Even likeness might be not quite it. There is an intrinsic quality of God that God gave to Adam. There's an intrinsic quality of Adam that he passes on to his children. We have these huge numbers of years. These are intended to show an abundance of life in contrast to what's about to happen. When Seth lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. And after he had become the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years, and altogether had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived 912 years, and then he died. So, father lives blank years, becomes father of son. After he had become the father of son, he lives another longer length of years, has other sons and daughters, and altogether lives a total number of years and then dies. That's the pattern for all of these. When Enosh lived 90 years, he became the father of Kenan, and after he had become the father of Kenan, Enosh lived 815 years, had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh lived 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan had lived 7 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. And after becoming the father of Mahalalel, Kenan lived 840 years and after had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Kenan lived 910 years, and then he died. Then Mahalalel lived 65 years. He became the father of Jared, and after he became the father of Jared, Mahalalel lived 830 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Mahalalel lived 895 years, and then he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch, and after he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years. He had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived 962 years, and then he died. And about at this point, you're thinking, why am I even listening to this? This is so repetitive. What's the point? We are about to see the point. When Enoch lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. By the way, Methuselah means, after me it comes. And after he had become the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years, and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived 365 years. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him away. Notice the differences. Enoch became the father of Methuselah. Enoch walked with God. Not lived, but walked with God. Altogether, he lived 365 years. If we were going to get into numerology, we might say that was significant. Days of a year. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him away. Enoch is so good, he walks with God, and he is so good that he does not die. That's the important part. Lamech, evil, murderous, violent. Enoch, so good that he is removed from death. That's what's important. So we compare the line of Seth to the line of Cain. 7 from Adam in the line of Cain is Lamech, the violent one. 7th in the line of Adam from Seth is Enoch. When Methuselah lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. Lots of Lamechs. And after he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah lived 969 years, and he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. He named him Noah and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." To Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years, and altogether sons and daughters. Altogether, Lamech lived 777 years, and then he died. For Noah had lived 500 years, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Another break. The birth of Noah. We will proceed with chapter 6 next time. I encourage you that when you are reading, try to figure out why the author has included the material. They had a limited amount of space. It's not like staring at a Word page and you can write forever. Or even, say, post-industrial revolution, when there were going to be stacks and stacks and stacks of perfectly good paper that if you could afford them, you could write on. These people are probably writing on vellum. And vellum only comes around once a year when the sheep are killed. Or the goats. So they have to make choices about what is included. The fact that they include these genealogies must mean they had a purpose in doing so. Think about that as you read. We will pick up chapter 6 next time. Until then, remember to join us again on Sunday for worship. The governor is supposed to make some announcements today about scheduled reopenings. I suspect that large gatherings will still be limited for a while yet, but we will address that once we know more. Until then, God keep you.